What podcast are you listening to? Not Dustin's podcast, but...
This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome to the Special Chronicles podcast. My name is Daniel Smrokowski. I'm the founder of Special Chronicles and a Southern Survivor Global Messenger alum with Special Olympics. Our website, specialchronicles.com. You can follow us on socials and wherever you get your podcasts. This week on the Special Chronicles podcast, I am welcoming Dustin Nickerson, a stand-up comedian based in San Diego, California. Has been on the Comedy Central, Conan, Netflix, and Amazon. Host of the podcast Don't Make Me Come Back Though, which you might be wondering if that's the show that you're listening to. But he's also the author of the book How to Be Married to Melissa, and his latest comedy special, Ones in the Family, is available to watch on YouTube. Please put your virtual hands together / possibly a live audience of one. As we welcome Dustin. Welcome, Dustin.
Hi, Dustin. This is Georgia.
Daniel.
Awesome. And
Hey, Georgia, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's so great to actually talk to you again.
yeah, it's
Yeah, it was great to meet you in Rosemont, and nice to be here on the pod.
Yes.
Glad you're in the room.
yes, she is. I don't have another camera angle right now with the setup, but yeah, so she's off camera here. We got more listeners than just the one, but I thought hopefully our listeners didn't get confused at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, I recognize that music. I was like, wait, where's Melissa?
yeah, I know. So we actually, when we had breakfast this morning, we pulled up your latest episode on YouTube, and we were actually watching you this morning.
Great, I'll take the views.
Well, two of us on one account, so you know.
Oh, that's not good. That's not good. You have to go watch on two different accounts.
Okay. Next time.
Or just watch it again.
Yeah. So next time, what we'll do is I'll put it up on my iPad and we'll pull it up on the computer, and then
Perfect.
Yeah.
Or just mute it on one. You can still watch it together.
Yeah. There we go. Anyways, so we mentioned that we after listening to your podcast for quite a few years, and I forgot how I got connected with you. It might have been, there was another comedian, Michael Jr., that I think I might have heard you on his podcast. And so my girlfriend and I, and then her parents, all four of us, I guess it was kind of like a double date with, I don't know if you can do, if that makes sense, but kind of, because Rosemont, honestly, from where we live, it's easier for us to get to than the Zanies in Chicago. So, that
worked out nicely then.
Yeah, it was. So, can you share with and then I love the kind of the bit that you said how we were in the kiss and fly lot, because I work at United Airlines at the airport, and so it was.
Oh, really?
It was a great great bit.
Yeah, every time I perform at that club, I forget just how close you are to the O'Hare Airport. I mean, you're right there.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're in the cell phone waiting lot. You're right there.
Yeah. And also, and I think that there already is a cell phone lot like within, distance of the club. So,
Hilarious.
yeah.
Hilarious.
So, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will just be learning about you for the first time. So, can you share with us how you got started in comedy, and then a little bit about your family?
Sure, yeah. I've been doing comedy for a little over 12 years. I started kind of late as far as a lot of careers go. Like, I was 27, I was married with 2 kids, and I always thought maybe I wanted to do stand-up. Like, it was just something that I always loved and paid a lot of attention to. And then I just kind of was like, oh, I'm going to go to open mic. So I went to the local open mic in my city and just kept going, never stopped going after that. And then after about 5 or 6 years, was able to kind of quit my day job and make it my full-time gig. So I started in San Diego. I'm still based in San Diego. Me, my wife, and then my 3 kids. I have a boy and 2 girls.
Awesome. And I know from watching, I believe both of your comedy specials, and then seeing you in Rosemont, you bring up your family a lot. That and on your podcast as well. So we'll just take a quick break and then get into I think what a lot of when we talk about inclusion, I think what a lot of our listeners can relate to. So just quickly to let all of you listening know that support for Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. You can join our supporters with a monthly or one-time donation so we can operate our studio and continue our mission giving respect and voice to those of us with disabilities. You can access it if you want to see the moment that Dustin popped into the studio, including, I think we might even have some footage, some bonus footage from when we tried to have you on, Dustin, a week ago, and so that will be available on if any of you listening go to join at specialchronicles.com/plus. You can see any of that bonus footage and see us work through all the technology. And even I
think this is our 3rd try.
I think it is, and even the time zones have even kind of gotten us a little.
But here we are.
Yes. So I believe and I forgot where I heard you mention this. It might have been on, I think it was on your podcast. You had told a joke about doing comedy at a camp in Alabama for people with disabilities. And so that, after, when we were driving home after seeing your show in Rosemont, it got me to think, because I always try to find some connection to our disability community to come on the podcast. Otherwise, our listeners are not really going to be able to totally relate. And so I was like, when I heard you talk about you and your family's experience at that camp, I was like, well, that's the angle that I could, because otherwise it wouldn't have made sense. Anyways, can you share with us your connection to our disability community and a little bit about? I don't know if you and if you want to share that joke that you shared about your experience at that camp.
Sure, yeah. So my family and I have gotten really involved in an organization called Hope Heals. And Hope Heals is it's with Jay and Catherine Wolf, and they do a lot of different work, books, and they just open up a coffee shop. But one of the big things that they do is they have a camp for families with a member in the family that has a disability. And they invited me to come do comedy at it, I guess this is 4 or 5 years ago. So I just showed up by myself, having no idea what the camp was. I mean, I had a rough idea what the camp was, but not really knowing what I was fully getting into. And it's one of those gigs that you do as a comedian where on paper everything seems wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's at 1 p.m. It's in a chapel. It's like full daylight. Everyone just came for lunch. And I remember getting up there just going like, well, here we go. Let's get a taste of this and see how this gig is going to go. And there was like a moment that I really got hooked on that camp because this was like 2022. Like we were still wearing masks when we were traveling. And that's when the joke came. So I told a joke about how it was a very unique time in history because I saw a woman who was breastfeeding, but without a cover, but she was wearing a mask. And I thought, well, like a unique moment in history the joke is that I've seen this one's nipple, but not her nose. And it was a fine joke, but there was an individual, David, who is nonverbal, but has this really wonderful high-pitched laugh, and that just tickled him for whatever reason. And he laughed, and then everyone around laughed kind of on his laugh, and I'm laughing. It's kind of just echoing in this chapel at a very kind of beautiful moment. And I was like, this is one of the most magical places I've ever been. This is amazing, this community of people. And so now my family and I just go back every year. We go back and we serve. I do the gig. Melissa teaches art there. My kids volunteer. So that was kind of that was my initial connection of my comedy into the disabled community in any way.
Awesome.
And what's fun now is a lot of those Hope Heals campers come to my other shows. Like in Houston, there's folks who come out who were at some of my shows just a couple nights ago, which is fun for me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's it got us. So my girlfriend is two things. So this podcast is a nonprofit here in Illinois, and then my girlfriend is also involved with this organization called Opportunity Knocks, and so it got us to kind of think like maybe we could invite you to come out here, or I mean it's not anything to talk about on the pod, but yeah, it got us to kind of think that you have you always had that empathy for those of us with disabilities, or did it start kind of in 2020 in that when you did the show at this camp?
No, I mean I would like to think that it didn't start 4 years ago. I think some of it is just growing as a human being and maturing, and my youngest daughter had some struggles of her own, not any physical disabilities, but she has. Oh, that's not true, actually. She does have tics that come from Tourette's. She has pretty bad anxiety and some stuff, some ADHD and ODD. So we have like some struggles in our home that certainly hope. I mean, it's different when you're the parent.
Yeah.
I've just been like, I want to be as loving and caring, as empathetic as I can, but also you need to get in the van and we got to go. So there was some there, but I mean, I think a lot of the time when you are in the church world, the disabled community is in the church world oftentimes.
Yeah.
And so back in like my old like ministry days, like the children's ministry I ran, we had I worked with another volunteer to create kind of a ministry for our children who were disabled. So there was stuff like that we were kind of doing along the way. But my merge, like, of my comedy and really my family into that world was Hope Healed.
Awesome. We'll take one final break before we get into the final couple segments where we talk a little bit more about how to make comedy more inclusive. So we'll get into that after this quick break to let you know that support for Special Chronicles comes from the ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program, the country's first energy and solar efficiency education program designed for and taught with people with disabilities. You can learn more at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. And support comes from United Airlines Bridge Disability Business Resource Group, connecting people of all abilities. Learn more on United's commitment to disability inclusion for employment and travel, including myself being one of the first full Special Olympics athletes that United hired 5 years ago. You can learn more at specialchronicles.com/United. And Dustin, I should put the disclaimer out there that we can't give any of our listeners discounts on flights. So I always need to like keep reminding people that. As much, yeah, I don't think my employer would want me to be giving out any buddy passes. So with that, I know I believe it was, I'm trying to think back in, I think 2018. So Special Olympics had celebrated the 50th anniversary in Chicago because that's where the first international games took place. And I remember I had interviewed Tim Shriver, who's the chairman. His mom had started Special Olympics, and it was in the hallway of a hotel, and like it was just of all the places to record a pod with the chairman of Special Olympics. It was quite a
wow.
It was a 30-minute episode that we did, and it was. Anyways, I remember around that time there was a comedian that had used I think there was a comedian that was making fun of people with disabilities, and I forgot. This was back in 2018, and I forgot what comedian that was. And I'm sure a lot of the comedy that you do, that Nate Bargatze does, that you guys do, is clean comedy. But I'm sure you've probably heard of other comedians that do make jokes towards us. So I guess kind of with that in mind, before we get into what I had planned, do you have any comments on and I know you're probably speaking more from the clean comedy side of things, but do you have any thoughts? Because like the way that you had shared that joke with the camp that you were at is more on the positive side, but do you have any comments on any comedians that have done jokes towards us in the past?
Yeah. I mean, historically, the stand-up community has been awful to the disabled community. Like, really, the comedy in general has. It's just been very, like, looking down, very butt of the joke. And I always just found it very lazy and uninteresting. And in addition to being wildly offensive, it's not very funny and it's not very good. Like, it's very, like, I'll just say what Carlin said in the 90s. George Carlin said this about in regards to one community he was talking about. I just don't understand a comedian that would use this huge platform and a huge voice he has to continue to what's called punching down, like at a community that struggles to have a voice, at a struggle that has to have representation. You're making fun of them? Why would you make fun of them? Like that, if anything, we should elevate that voice. But even if you do nothing, we should be punching up at, at institutions or entities that can kind of control our voices. Or another Mark Maron says, or punch yourself, which is, you can kind of make fun of yourself.
Yeah.
So I just I find I know why they do it. I know why they do it because it's easy. Like it's an easier version of what we do in stand-up. It's easier to take a basic little punchline and look at that community and come out of it. And I mean, clearly it's not for me, but I also find it very repugnant and a total waste of your voice.
Yeah.
It's so much more interesting to, at least for me, to bring, you saw my new hour.
Yeah.
I have 5 minutes about me realizing how hard it is for women to exist every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just basically, it's their fears, their trips to the doctors, all that. That's much more interesting to me of here's a person learning and bringing a voice, somebody else's voice to his own voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then as opposed just let's retread these old ideas of where we kick the disabled community because you guys have had it so easy. Let's make fun of you.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't make and as I'm sure I believe there's over 1 billion people across the globe with disabilities, including the family and friends. So for comedians to make fun of such a large population, it doesn't make sense. So switching gears now a little bit more to the positive side, building upon what you said in the previous segment, where now some of the kids, it's probably adults, I probably shouldn't say kids, some of the adults with disabilities that first saw you, were first introduced to you at that camp in Alabama, have gone to your comedy shows. You had my girlfriend Georgia and I at your show in Rosemont a couple of months ago. How can we make, and I guess speaking to, and I'm sure Nate probably does this too, how, speaking for yourself and your comedy, but also to Nate and any of the guys at Nateland and others, how can we make comedy more inclusive and accessible at comedy shows, both with the language, with the jokes that you say, but then also in the actual comedy clubs, or in Nate's case, arenas. Yes. So in both kind of sides of things, how can we make more comedy more in both the language, but also the and venues?
Yeah, I mean, the language will be what it is.
Yeah.
Some comedians want to work clean and some don't. And I imagine some members of the disabled community don't care if the show is clean.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit of a taste thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I obviously work clean, and I don't curse on stage, but that's just my personal choice. As far as the topics, though, I would imagine if I were a disabled person attending a comedy show, one of my biggest fears is that I would be made fun of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so when you were, just like anybody who goes into a comedy show, we're all kind of afraid of being made fun of. Or like, he's going to make fun of my hat or my date or whatever I'm wearing. You know, that's why some people are afraid to sit in the front rows of comedy shows.
Yeah.
So I think as a comedian, personally, you can build an act in a persona where people know they're kind of safe there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to find victims in my jokes. So you can do that for sure up there, and even if you're not like going out of your way to like raise and make louder the voice of someone in a certain oppressed community, just not making fun of them is a good start.
Yeah.
You can just by leaving it out of your mouth altogether.
Yeah. Awesome.
You know, as far as the venues, that's I think that might be something that we as the comedians, and then as the venues need that feedback. Like last week in San Francisco, there a fan of mine who's in a wheelchair came to a show, and that was my first question, was like, how were they accommodating? And they're like, they were great, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a show in Sacramento where there was a deaf person who brought a sign language interpreter, and a lot of shows do provide that, which is good. But I think they might have to request that. It's not always there. So we, as on our end, we just need feedback of just like, hey, this I need this. This would help me. And I know we would do our best. Most of us would do our best and be happy to accommodate.
Awesome. Share with us maybe a few examples of inclusion at your comedy show. You showed some, but is there maybe in like a couple of examples that kind of speak to you shared a couple like in San Francisco and in a couple, but is there maybe a couple that speak to the power or the impact that inclusion has at a comedy show, in particular to your shows?
Right. Yeah, there is. I think for me, my favorite thing is when no one really like makes notice or cares that there's someone who's disabled there. It's just, we're all one group.
Mm-hmm.
We're all kind of one community who's there. Like I love, like my friends from the Hope Heals camp in Houston, and they were just in the meet and greet line, and it was their turn, and we just kind of sat and chatted and signed a book for them. And this individual was in a wheelchair but could get out of his wheelchair, to stand briefly for a picture. And that's one of those things that I'm glad everyone in line is seeing this and witnessing this, and also not making a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
I would imagine part of the thing, if you're in the disabled community, is you just want to live a life where people aren't looking at you and people don't really care too much. Like they're happy that you're there.
Yeah. I love what you said there, because I think that's what a lot of like Georgia, myself, and so many others, we just want to blend, like instead of sticking out in like, we want to be able to like blend in like just like anybody else. So before we get to the final thoughts, and then we've got a final question at the end, but you touched on this a little bit, but I guess maybe we could kind of sum up this making comedy more inclusive. segment saying like how comedians can make jokes inclusive without being offensive for intellectual disability. I think you touched a little bit on it, but of course comedians can kind of say whatever they want, but kind of maybe from your perspective, I'll just give a quick example. I heard on the Nate Land podcast, I think Brian Bates had said something, I think special needs adult, or he used something that wasn't in people first language, which I know can be a big debate in the community. For example, like if you look at my t-shirt, it clearly says disabled first on here. So, but I think like I wrote a column about it back in my days of working on a newspaper, but I think the heart of it is where you don't focus on the disability, and so I had DM'd Brian, and he had asked like how to correctly say.
Yeah.
So at least he responded to me. So how I guess in your opinion, and maybe speaking to whether you're speaking to the Nateland guys, or those, how can comedians make jokes inclusive without being offensive for intellectual disability?
I mean, when you're in our world, you're in a world of words. That's what we do. Our whole world is words, and words do change. And what was the appropriate thing to use at one point does change. So in that regard, you do want you got to give a little patience to the comic, but then the comic also has to be willing to learn. Yeah. So, and this was an innocent mistake. I meant no harm in this. I just thought, because in my lifetime, even, just 39 years of age, there's been, handicap, disabled, special, like you said, it does change. So you just kind of have to, it changes. But as long as you receive it and you don't go, well, I'm saying what I used to say, grow as a person. Yeah. As far as the jokes themselves, what I always do, I always think if I'm talking about a group of people, how would I feel and would I tell that joke if they were in the front row of my comedy show? If I was looking down and that particular group that I'm talking about is right there, would I say that joke? And it could be about any topic. It could be about age. Like if I'm making fun of someone for being old, would I say that to a 90-year-old in my front row? Like I have a joke right now about how my kid's high school has a gay bully. Would I say that to a homosexual couple sitting in the front row? Like you know what I mean? And that's where that is a helpful filter for me, because that lets me know, like, is this actually offensive? Because sometimes when you're a comedian, you are kind of tap dancing up there. Like you say certain words that people go, are they going to be offensive right now? Because we're using words that might lead to it. Yeah. Like the joke of my son having a gay bully. Yeah. But at the end of that joke, it's not offensive at all. It's actually, I think, something that in that community would laugh at. I know, because I've seen laugh at and be like, actually, the point of that joke is that if you are a bully, you've made progress in society. Yeah. Like when I was a kid, gay kids got bullied for being gay. Yeah. And so there's that's a good example, I think, of just like whatever community, whatever race, whatever age, whatever socioeconomic group, whatever. Would you make fun of poor people if you knew there's a poor person in your front row? Would you make fun of homeless people if there's a homeless person in your front row? If you're not willing to look that community in the eyes and say that joke, then I just won't tell it. And I don't think you should tell it, But actually, I'm going to take the word back, should, because should is too strong of a word. I don't want to be in charge of what jokes people tell. I won't do it for that reason, because I don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like the feeling of making someone feel bad for the way that they are.
Awesome. Well, before we get into the final question, I'm sure a lot of our listeners could probably just find you online, but can you, for those that are just listening to, because some people are not watching the pod. I know about you. I mean, I prefer audio podcasts, but I also go back and forth, and I'll, like, 1 week for example, for your podcast, I'll listen to the audio. Another week, I'll watch the video. So, I'm sure a lot of people probably do that now. So, where can our listeners, I don't know if you've, I recorded a podcast with a guest that it aired the beginning of this week, and I recorded it in studio. And if you go back, I think it's episode 590 something, whatever the I had my iPad out, and you could clearly advertising for your podcast.
Oh yes.
on
Excellent.
So with that, where can our listeners go follow and listen to your pod? Can go check out to see when you're on tour. This episode, I think, is going to drop probably the beginning of December. So I guess just kind of keep that in mind with any tour dates. But where can people follow?
Right. Yeah. Our podcast is called Don't Make Me Come Back There. It's a funny podcast about family with me and my wife, Melissa. And it's available everywhere podcasts are, and also on YouTube. We're on the Nate Land channel. Our podcast comes out every Thursday there. And then if you go to my website, DustinNickerson.com, it has all my tour dates. I'm always out here touring. I'm in Dallas right now. And then all my socials are just Dustin Nickerson or Dustin Nickerson Comedy on TikTok. You know, I'm out there.
Oh, awesome. TikTok is one of the places that I and this podcast is not. I think, yeah, I personally don't get it, and I do all the social media for this podcast myself, so I don't get it. That's the one that I don't get. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
There's so many, and every time you feel like you figure one out, there's a new one to understand.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we've been recording for 37 minutes, so before that final question, do you have any, the time has flown by, and so hopefully the echo on the listeners are not going to hear an echo, but do you have any?
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Do you have any final thoughts on your overall time coming on the Special Chronicles podcast now that it's taken us 3 weeks?
No, I thank you for your patience with me. That's the main thing. It just took forever, and we got messed up on the time zone, and then with the audio stuff last week. But thank you for your patience with me, and it's been really nice to chat you.
Yeah, anytime. I'll stay. I'll keep following your tour schedule. So the next time, maybe I'll invite some other friends. The next time that you come to the Kiss and Fly lot of the airport.
Yes. Can't wait.
Yeah,
can't wait.
Absolutely. So we got one final question, and we've got a bumper. So let's go ahead and roll that bumper.
We're not just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising. Peaceful protesters.
In a rebellion against anyone
who has a fear of difference.
Difference.
Our demands are
equality.
Dignity.
And the recognition of our
shared humanity. We will not stop
or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
more divided than ever.
And coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution
is inclusion.
Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
So, Dustin, ever since I came back from the 2019 Special Olympics World Games in Abu Dhabi, which was 6 years ago, I've been asking, so inclusion is a big part here at this podcast and Special Olympics. I'm sure even as we just finished talking about in your comedy. And so I'm going to ask one final question, and then we've got my girlfriend Georgia, who's off camera. She'll be on mic, but off camera, like your producer is. She's got just a last-minute question to ask you at the end. But
great.
What does inclusion mean to you?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said earlier. You articulated it better than me. I think a lot of the time the desire is just to blend in. And that's what I want, is we want folks in our family and our life and our community to feel that they blend into our lives, that they're not a hassle to our lives, that it's not a standout. We went out like it's a hassle that we're accommodating an individual, that we want it just to kind of become a part of our lives that blends in very naturally to our lives in the way, in our voices, in our actions, in our accommodations. Inclusion looks like just kind of existing peacefully together, not to make invisible a disability, but to know that because we care about the individuals, we're more than happy to accommodate in any way that we can. I think that's what inclusion looks like, at least for us.
Awesome. That's a perfect way, because we don't want this pod to be entertaining, as sometimes just like your pod entertaining, but we want our listeners to, which I'm sure you and Alyssa can probably relate to this as well, that we want not just to consume this content for entertaining, but to take something with them. So like that. That's why we ask this final question, is to really take inclusion into their communities. I'm sure listeners of your pod might not, will take the funny, but hopefully will take family lessons, maybe family lessons.
Yeah. Fingers crossed,
yeah.
We'll do our best.
Awesome. So before we play the outro music, I'm going to unmute. Oh, see, how many times can you? So I'm sure with you, I don't know if, your producer is the one that's behind your control, so I don't know if you can necessarily mute Alyssa, but I've got the power. I don't know if that's a good...
No, I can't. No, thank God I can't mute Melissa. I wouldn't accept that power.
Awesome, yeah. So, anyways, I just unmuted Georgia's mic. She's off camera, but yeah.
Hi, Georgia.
Oh, she doesn't have headphones.
No, I don't have any headphones.
She'll hear this afterwards, but
yeah.
Okay, tell her I said hi.
I will tell her that you say hi. Just like Melissa doesn't wear headphones, she doesn't wear headphones either. So, anyways.
Hi again.
Hello.
Okay. What does the word inclusive to yourself
mean to you?
Oh,
that's what I just asked, right? Do you have enough? Okay, well, I'll let her say anything about his comedy show. Your whole review of your comedy show.
All right. Well, Dustin, I had so much fun seeing you in Rosemont. I am a huge fan of comedy and comedians. You are one of my biggest favorite comedian, and my review for you, I'm gonna give you 10 stars out of 10 stars. So I love you, Dustin.
Oh,
and
thank you.
And just to say, Georgia has not seen a lot of comedy before. So I introduced her to Yo. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Georgia. That means a lot. Oh, that means the world to me. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, she'll hear this. she'll hear it after. With that, thank you. A few plugs for those of you listening. You can join our bonus content, specialchronicles.com/plus to support the podcast. I tried a Patreon for a couple months, and just because Patreon takes so much, I'm doing it on our own website, so it's a little bit easier.
I understand. I understand.
Yeah. So, and I've known other people that have used Patreon for years, and are now going away from, so they get more of the cut. So yeah. So I don't.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, also you can shop at Mojo. Dustin, Georgia is actually wearing the same shirts that we were wearing at your show in Rosemont.
Oh, right. I remember those.
Yeah. So for those listening, if you go to specialchronicles.com/shop, we've got T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. 60% of the profits will go back to Special Chronicles, and so Dustin, if you know if anybody that wants to get any of our merch, specialchronicles.com/shop. It took us a whole year. It took us all of last year to get that up, just to get.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Good job.
It is, yeah. So with that, tap that follow button. We've got new episodes will drop every week. Every Monday, and thank you. Guest has been Dustin Nickerson. Thank you, Dustin, and hopefully this won't be the last time that we'll be seeing you. Hopefully we'll come out to another one of your shows.
Awesome. Can't wait. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep, anytime. And until then, everyone, have a great week and choose to include. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Special Chronicles podcast. Our podcast was produced by Daniel Smrokowski on the Special Chronicles Network. Follow Special Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review Special Chronicles on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website, specialchronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 500 episodes absolutely for free. Also, there's a list of our favorites, original series, award-winning columns, and blogs. And sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive bonus content delivered to your inbox. Again, specialchronicles.com. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard. Thanks as always to our business manager, Adam Smrokowski, who always encourages us to never give up. I'm Daniel Smrokowski, back next week with more stories.
It's okay.
Special Chronicles. Giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.